former Mexican congressman has been convicted of gender-based political violence over posts in which he referred to a transgender representative as a man who self-ascribes as a woman. Rodrigo Iván Cortés, I don't know if he is of that ilk, who is head of political advocacy for the group called National Front for the Family, was also convicted of digital, symbolic, psychological and sexual violence. A real royal flush of violence there for using masculine references on Twitter and Facebook. Cortés has appealed his case to the Superior Chamber in Mexico, and his legal defense is being supported by ADF International. We can speak to its legal counsel, Tomas Henriquez, I hope that's the correct pronunciation, who joins us now from Washington. Hello, Tomas.
That was spot on, Simon. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So what can you say? How can you flesh out this case for us?
Well, you get a fantastic summary on it, and this is fundamentally the issue. Unfortunately, the courts of law in Mexico, and specifically the electoral court for the federal judiciary, has been politicized, and more than that, weaponized by some who happen to belong to the ruling parties in Mexico with the objective of silencing their opposition. Rodrigo's case, as you mentioned, involves specifically the him being penalized by the courts for the mere fact of recognizing the undeniable fact that Salma Luévano, the transgender lawmaker, is in fact a man that identifies as a woman. But the court has said that it is unlawful for him to make such a distinction, as it is invidious against Salma Luévano. And Rodrigo's case is not the only one, as there are over five cases that have come up within the past year in which the courts have acted in the same way.
So, just for my benefit, and I might be a bit off the pace here a little bit, but presumably these conversations and these remarks were expressed in Spanish, would that be correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Is there, because obviously one of the issues we have with this whole concern and this wave at the moment is a question of language, and a lot of MPs in this country, and I believe in America as well, have been confronted with the question, what is a woman, and whether the word woman refers to a gender identity or to one's biological sex. Is that distinction made in Mexico in Spanish in the same way? Are there different words? Has there a transgression been made which won't automatically translate directly?
Yes, that is certainly the case. The Spanish language has this particularity shared with others that it is inherently gendered. Whenever you refer to a lawmaker, you can do it in the male form or the female form. And in this case, Rodrigo chose to use the male form because that is what he knows to be coherent with the reality of who Salma Luévano is. Of course, Salma Luévano identifies as a woman and wishes to be referred to in the female form, but Rodrigo, in taking control of his own expression, has decided, I will not do this because this is a betrayal to which I know to be the truth and my witness to the truth as part of the political debate that is ongoing on this specific issue.
That seems reasonable enough. Where is Mexico generally on this issue? Do you have self-ID at the moment? Are there debates about biological males in women's prisons and so on?
The debate has really been stifled precisely because there's an attempt imposed from the top down by the courts to eliminate or avoid any sort of distinction altogether. As I mentioned, there have been other cases in which the unlawful offense by the speaker has been precisely making a distinction between trans women and women. The court has said in other cases that by introducing this distinction, you are in fact committing violence against women. Ironically, the same court uses it to the advantage of trans-identified individuals whenever it is their own claims that are being brought to court. And so they will, applying an intersectional matrix, suggest that because they are trans women and not just women, their rights or their pretenses would trump those of women. There have been cases in which the court has even acknowledged that the so-called trans women have themselves engaged in violence, and yet it has failed to actually sanction that misbehavior on their part because of an intersectional analysis by which they are more vulnerable than women generally, and thus they have introduced a distinction themselves. one of the cases that we are involved in as ADF International is that of Gabriel Cuadri, who is currently a sitting lawmaker in the parliament in Mexico, who has been also sanctioned by the same court after a complaint by the same lawmaker involving the same sort of facts. And the fact that he, in chambers, in parliament, in Congress, I should say, was suggesting that there was something that was fundamentally unfair about, quote, trans women taking the spots that were reserved for women with respect to political representation. And that was deemed as a political offense by the court and ultimately sanctioned against Gabriel Cuadri.
That seems very familiar, of course, from what we've seen more famously, world famously, in America and also in the United Kingdom. And one of the phenomena that seems to be familiar is that lawmakers, parliamentarians and, of course, academics discuss these things in what you refer to as the intersectional matrix and so on. The wider public, generally speaking, are inclined to be tolerant and want everybody to have a fair crack of the whip. But once they become apprised of the actual situation, the ramifications and implications, they are aroused to indignation. Would you say this was what's happening in Mexico, the general population behind this, or not so much?
I think that we're starting to see a groundswell of support for cases like that of Rodrigo or Gabriel Cuadri. The problem continues to be the fact that you have the political elites in control of political institutions that are, for the most part, taking sides with transgender activists. So we're not entirely sure where this will go, but as to Rodrigo and Gabriel Cuadri and other cases in which we are involved with, we are taking their cases internationally to the Inter-American Commission and then Court of Human Rights, protecting their free speech. We believe that it is absolutely self-evident that there has been a violation here. Their speech was absolutely peaceful. It was not an incitement to discrimination. It was not an incitement to violence. And therefore, it is unconscionable that they are being censored by their expressions, by the most fundamental political right that we all are entitled to.
I absolutely agree with you, Tomas. All the best, all best wishes from GB News on that front. Tomas Henriquez there, ladies and gentlemen, from Washington.